My story begins, like all good stories, at the ocean. When I was young, my parents took me on a trip to Hawaii. The first time I had seen the ocean. And when I saw the massive blue, clear, clean water, I was impressed. And when I saw surfers riding the waves and dancing on their boards, I fell in love with the ocean. It was amazing. Something I had never seen before. I was only 10 years old and living in Utah. Sadly, we could not stay at the ocean. We had to go back home. And I often found myself, when I was hanging out with friends, talking about surfing, talking about the ocean, talking about going back to the ocean. We would go to the mall and I would sneak off to the Hollister store. And while my friends were trying on new clothes, I was sitting in the corner reading the Surfer magazine and taking the mail-in slips home to try and convince my parents to buy me a subscription. Now living in Utah, there's no ocean, so I did what I could. I had fun. I learned how to snowboard, I learned how to ski, learned how to skateboard, played hockey. I even learned how to skimboard on the lakes that we have. But I never learned how to surf. But I had dreams, at least once or twice a month, that there were waves in the Great Salt Lake. Dreams where I would see the waves and tell my parents or my friends, hey, let's get our surfboards, let's go. The dreams always ended before we could get to the water, never actually fulfilling anything in the dream. When I got married, my wife would make fun of me. I'd wake up and say, hey, guess what dream I had last night? And she'd laugh at me again. Would brush it off, but the dream never really ever stopped. So I just kept wondering, would it be possible? Would the Great Salt Lake ever produce any waves? Would there be any way to surf that water? It was shallow. It wasn't deep, but there were winds, so maybe there was a possibility. Like I said, I learned how to skimboard.
Whoa.
And I did that for a long time.
Yeah, you got some pop.
That's Bear Lake. Big lake, but those waves are not rideable waves. And I finally learned how to surf in my late 20s. But I still had those dreams about the Great Salt Lake and how and where I was going to catch waves. And it was becoming more and more difficult as the lake got drier and drier. Shoreline got more and more difficult to access. Until one day in early March, there was a big storm that was forecasted to bring 30 to 40 mile per hour winds with gusts into the 50s from the south-southwest. And that would push waves northward all the way up to Antelope Island. So what did I do? Called one of my best friends and said, hey, you want to do something stupid with me this weekend? You want to go try and catch some waves on the Great Salt Lake? And like any great friend, he said, oh, of course, let's go. Yes, right now. We're going. So, waited till Saturday, got my gear ready, and drove in the morning out to Antelope Island. Even though it's called Antelope Island, it's actually more known for the wild buffalo herds. Driving out to our spot, had to drive through a herd of buffalo. But that's nothing new. We'd finally arrived at the beach, where the waves were finally coming in. The water is about a mile and a half from the beach, because the lake is so low. So, we hiked out and got ready. And we tried to surf. And still there. Were they big enough to push you in? We weren't quite sure. But we were gonna try no matter what. Did it work? Not really. So we tried again. And we kept trying. And we tried again. And we tried again. And we kept on trying. The waves just didn't seem to be uniform enough. We didn't have enough power. The wind wasn't pushing them right where we wanted, but we kept getting closer. We kept getting a little bit of push from the water. That muddy, brown, salty water. Either way, we were having fun. The wind was howling, and the waves were getting bigger. With the wind getting bigger, the waves were getting bigger, and we kept getting closer and closer. Were we about to give up? Well, maybe, but we'd also spent so much time getting there, we weren't ready to give up. We just wanted to keep on trying. We kept seeing big waves. Well, big is a relative term here, and waves that we could ride. And then, it almost clicked in. We were getting there. We were finding our spots, but we were really suffering from the surfer's paradox. Everywhere around you could see rideable, catchable waves, except for where you were waiting in the lineup. So we just had to wait. Seemed like the waves were never going to cooperate. The sky was getting darker, the clouds were getting darker, a snowstorm was on its way, and we were still out in the water. I didn't care how cold it was, we couldn't even tell. We were so close, and then everything lined up perfect. Whether the wind shifted or the waves shifted, all of a sudden we were catching them and riding them. It was awesome. Still weren't perfect at it, but we were having more fun now that we were catching waves. Finally decided it doesn't count unless you actually paddle into a wave. So that was my next goal. And riding waves. Took forever. We weren't cold. Not at all. The wind was picking up. The sun was going away. The clouds were getting darker. The storm was on its way. And, well, didn't know if we really wanted to be out in the lake in a snowstorm. But we were having fun. I don't know if this seems important to anyone or impressive. These aren't huge waves. They're, barely even rideable. But we were having so much fun. all the surf sessions I've ever participated in, this is one of the most memorable. Not because, we were catching the waves of our lives, or because we were in some tropical paradise, but it was fun because it was so unique. It was a blast out there catching waves in a place that I had dreams about most of my life. I was catching waves for the first time at the Great Salt Lake, and I was having fun. And it's been about 5-6 months since this surf session happened. Since I finally compiled all the audio and video and put it all together. And you know what the really cool thing? In those past 5 or 6 months, I haven't had a single dream about surfing the Great Salt Lake. It's not bugging me anymore. But I do have my eyes out for the big windstorms, because I want to do this again. Thanks for watching, and I hope you get out there and catch waves wherever you are. Whether it's a small lake or a big ocean, get out there and have fun.